Hi, welcome. My name is Jess Jones. I am the Center Director here with the Kaufherr Resource Center here in Chicago, and we are happy to have you with us today. Obviously, as I've said before, and I will say again, accessing resources and being together looks different these days, but we are glad to have this medium, have this space to get together and still get a chance to talk shop. A little bit about us. We are the Member Resource Center that is next door to the Chicago local SAG-AFTRA office. We serve union performers, SAG-AFTRA equity, and support the pursuit of professional work. Normally, we have our center open to you to access our resources, our video suites, our audio suites, but whether or not our center is open, the work continues. And so we continue to talk about the work and figure out how we do it together. And in that vein, I want to make sure that you stay plugged in for what we do, what we keep doing, what we will continue to do, whether on the ground together or in our own homes. So first things first, you can access us at kaufhercenterchicago.com. Right down there at the bottom, there is the option to subscribe to our newsletter. If you do not already get it, please do. We want to make sure that these types of conversations keep coming your way. And you can also contact us through the website if you need to be in touch with us in regards to opportunities that you need help with coming your way, how we can help facilitate your at-home setup and get you set up to do the work for yourself from the spaces that we're doing it these days. You can also follow us if you aren't already on Facebook and Instagram. We're at Kaufherr Center. We also post photos from events there, put out event invites for future events that you can RSVP for, and let you know about other just organic programming and initiatives that we have going on with members. And we want you to be a part of it. So please connect with us, stay connected with us so that we can connect with you and find new spaces that we can all connect together. But in regards to connecting, I'm excited that we get a chance to connect with our friends Bill Rohlfing and Donna Jay Fulks today. Bill and I have been kind of back to back in the voiceover conversation throughout the summer, and he brought up the idea of having this conversation today. So I'm really excited about what we have in store for you. But without further ado, I'm going to invite my friend Bill to the conversation. Bill is often and always bringing really awesome resources. Hi, Bill. How are you?
Doing great. Hey, thanks for doing this again.
Thank you for bringing this conversation to the community in this way. Bill has been incorporating his skills and his work into our community throughout this time. He's been helping us moderate some of our studio jams, which he also does, I believe, one-on-one separately from here. And he's also done a previous conversation in regards to the work in voiceover with some of our friends earlier this summer. And I'm excited to have you lead this conversation. So without further ado, Bill, I'm just going to let you take over. To the audience, please know you could put questions in the chat. If and as they are incorporated into the conversation, they may get answered. Also, we'll have a chance to do some Q&A at the end. So if there's any questions you have that you want to save for later, I'll come back in and let you all know that I'm here and we can bounce some questions to our friends. But without further ado, Bill, I'm going to hand it over to you.
Okay, sounds good. First things first, because I always forget to mention this. We all know the Kaufherr Member Center, and it has a physical space. I always think about like how much we might spend on a cup of coffee when we go into Starbucks or whatever. Even if it's just $5, maybe you could take the time to donate to help keep the Kaufherr Member Center going, because they do offer such great things like this. But the reason why we're here today, the subject of this webinar is, well, the embodiment of the subject of this can be deceiving. Donna Jay Fulks has realized the kind of success, and I'm going to read this down, has realized the kind of success in this business at large of voiceovers that very few of us have done. And if she were to boast about her accomplishments, no one could blame her. And yet you'd be hard pressed to get Donna to brag about all that she's done, perhaps because there isn't much she could tell you that isn't impressive. But that's why I'm here. A graduate of NYU Theater School, early in her career, Donna was encouraged to audition for voiceover by her Chicago agent, and the rest is history. Like Super Bowl rings, Donna could fill one hand with the kinds of brass rings that we all dream of in this business, covering the genres of commercial, promo, narration, political, and if that weren't enough, 3 months into her LA tenure, animation. All of that is, of course, great, Donna, but the one gig that casts perhaps the longest shadow has to be the one you did with Cindy Crawford. Anyway, I was given that piece of information. I have no idea what it is, but I think it's funny. So please welcome to the Kaufherr Member Center webinar series, Donna Jay Fulks. Thank you for doing this and for being here. And I hope I properly embarrassed you with that.
Yeah, that was awful.
Anyway, no, seriously though, you're just you're the most incredibly generous, well-grounded person, and perhaps that is in no small part the reason why you've done well in this business. And you know, you're one of the people that was top of mind when I asked our agents, you know, hey, who do you think would be a good person? You know, you think Donna? And like, without hesitation, they're like, of course, she would love to do something like this.
She loves to talk about herself.
Yeah, she loves to talk about herself. Well, now we're done talking about, well, maybe a little bit about you, because some of that is very interesting in terms of your history. And perhaps we get that out of the way now so we can move on, because I know you probably don't want to dwell too much on that stuff. But
yeah, I already see some good questions.
Oh, good. Well, and we can
yeah, no, you're in charge.
Jump on that. Well, but again, too, if you see something that looks like interesting that we could transition to answering, that would be good.
Right,
but one of the things I just I covered like the different genres of voiceovers that you've done, and you were telling me a little bit about how you got started in the business. You were with Jefferson and Associates, and I don't know if you want to go into the same story you told me, but I think it's interesting, and I think most people kind of know about that. Tell us a little bit about your history. You know, after a degree in theater, which I think has been a benefit. Tell us a little about your history and how you came to Chicago and how you got started in voiceover.
Okay, well, the degree's from Columbia College in Chicago, which is why I ended up in Chicago. So I went to NYU for 2 years. Yeah. And then I'm studying theater, and then moved home, and you know, just was focused on. I had a theater career, or you know, going to school for acting. And at Columbia, I think you can major in voiceover. And I know there's amazing classes being taught by Deb Dotzer and other people at Columbia. Yeah. So when I was at Columbia, you know, getting a headshot was figuring out how to get a headshot was a big deal. There were no classes on camera, you know, or voiceover. It was really, I was totally unaware of it, because I was just focused on film and trying to get film work or commercial work, industrial work, and on camera and theater. And then I was at this agency that was flailing, but I didn't know it. And so I guess all their top talent left, but I didn't know it. And so the agents just started sending me out on voiceover. And it's an infuriating story for everybody but me, because everyone you know, it's the hardest thing to get into. And I was literally given like the golden ticket. I mean, but I booked the jobs. I mean, I wasn't given the jobs. I was given the auditions. But I was also, you know, young, and I had an agent who was like, hey, I can make something of you. And she really focused on getting me started. And then when she closed, I moved to Stewart Talent. And then that's where I really started getting great auditions. And I had a retail account that lasted for about 10 years. And it was truly like being in a voiceover class for 10 years, because I had no choice but to learn how to do it, how to do radios and television, and, you know, everything that they did, I did for them. So that was another really fortunate, or I don't know.
Was that JCPenney?
That was JCPenney, yeah. And I talk to people a lot about like luck versus talent versus you know, and there's all of that's kind of wrapped up together. And it's like, you know, you have to be in the right place at the right time, but you also have to be ready to go, you know? So that's the thing. It's like, if you get the opportunity and you're not ready for it, which has happened to me on camera many, many times, where I had auditions for really cool projects that I didn't get because I wasn't ready for it. I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
So that I just focused on voiceover because I knew how to do it, but I taught myself how to do it. I didn't take any workshops. I didn't take any classes. But what I
Really?
did do,
That's amazing. Yeah.
but what I did do was this is 1,000 years ago. I held a tape recorder up to the television and I recorded commercials and then I wrote them out. And then I practiced what the voiceover talent was doing. And I read along with her and figured out like, she's going up at the end of this sentence, or she's hitting this word really hard, or she's saying this one part really fast, or whatever it was, and just practiced what it felt like to do voiceover, because it's totally different than, and every part of voiceover is totally different than, being what you're doing on camera, what you're doing live in theater. So learning about your voice and learning about your microphone is the biggest thing you can do. That's the most important thing you can do.
I think it's interesting that there was one phrase in there, you said what it felt like. And I think that's, what it felt like to be a voiceover. I think that's like a really important aspect to all of this, because I think people, if they get too analytical about it, too left brain about it, they're looking at the surface and they're trying to mimic things. And what they miss is the soul. And the fact that you came from acting and you're working on this, when you were doing that stuff, were you just trying to get the phrasing right and looking at the structure of the phrasing? And because that's an important part. I mean, that's one of the things I think that throws people that come from other disciplines, is the fact that you have to do all this technical stuff in addition to, oh, by the way, make it sound like you're a real person,
Yeah, absolutely. That, if you made the comparison to the analogy to art, it's like, well, everybody has to draw that dumb sphere and then make the shadow. And like, you have to practice it and then do it your own way. Then maybe from now on, your sphere is square and that's it. But knowing how to do it, knowing what it feels like we were talking yesterday, like people say to you when you're in a session, hey, you've got a half second to play with. Go for it. Like, knowing time
at
60.
Yeah, it's like,
or in a 15-second commercial, like you've got a whole half second. Take your time there with it. So knowing how to do, like, those are really specific, weird tools. Just like I did Janelle Snow's excellent, she did a self-tape webinar, which I watched. Because even though I don't do on camera, I get on-camera requests for video games for motion capture.
Oh, right. So, yes.
And for announcer, I've auditioned to announce some stuff and they want to see what you look like in case you're going to be on camera. So I took her workshop and like she demonstrated how like she's looking at the camera. And then she said, so the difference between saying someone's walking in the door over here or someone's walking in the door over here. And she just moved her eyeballs and it was like such a genius. And that's the kind of thing you have to, that you're working toward. I mean, I've been doing this for so many years, but that's what you're working toward, gaining all of these different skills. And for people who are starting out or not, during a time when it's slow, like practicing is everything. So if you're working all the time, maybe you don't need to be practicing all the time, but having the discipline to practice every day. Because like I've had so many people during the last few months come to me and ask like, how do I do this? How do I get started? And I often tell people like, I give them like my email and my list of links and all my stuff. And then I say, so work on this for 2 months and then call me back. And if you call me and call me back after you've practiced every day and you've made improvements, and not a lot of people call me back.
Yeah, that's a hard thing to do.
Yeah, and but you're unlike on camera or theater, you can practice, you can get better because I think this is a terrible time to get started in voiceover, but it's a great time to get ready to get started in voiceover.
Yeah, that's great.
Like because a lot of people right now, I get auditions like you have to record from home. You have to have a good sounding room. Or, I mean, I was on a meeting, a voiceover committee meeting with this woman who's like some animation star in New York. And she said she's she's like propped up some blankets and she's doing it from her apartment. Like you can come up with solutions that sound good. But yeah, but a lot of people want you to be there, or they want you to have an expensive mic, or they want you to have Source Connect Pro or IPDTL or these platforms that they can connect and record high quality files with you. So if you're not set up to do all that, it can be really overwhelming right now. So I think if you've got that going, great, then just keep working. But if you don't have all that stuff going, start small. Like get yourself a good mic that sounds good that you can start practicing on, and plug it in and use your GarageBand or whatever and start practicing and start getting to know your voice. Because we had a question before we started about demos, because there's a big business. There's so many people who want, all you have to do is give them $5,000 and they will make you a great demo. And that demo most likely will be something you don't need and can't use, because you can't reproduce what the producer did for you. Yeah. You know, and so what makes more sense is to try to, you know, if you have an agent is willing to send you out, to start working and see like, well, what am I really good at? What do people want to hire me for? What is the thing that, you know, that's unique about me and good about my voice? Get to know that. And then, you know, maybe you're going to make a demo out of, like, my commercial demo. All my demos, except my animation demos, are all work I've actually done. But I didn't have any animation work, so I just had to make up a bunch of stuff. And now I'm like, oh, I can actually make an animation demo with some of the things I've done. And I know now what I book and what people like from me and what I'm good at. And so, you know, I don't know, that's just like a little sideline about demos, but. Well,
that's, you know, and I also have to say that, you know, you were talking about, you know, when I was thinking about Gene Wigand with his Blue Yeti in his closet, basically speaking into a box and doing an actual job that way. I suppose you can get away with certain things along those lines. I just wanted to have you share with the group the story you told me about stopping at the side of the road.
Oh, I know, and
hilarious.
I don't. Let me go. Wait, hold on. Let me see if I can bring it in. This little booth is just a closet I made, and it's really small. Sure.
Yeah, it's hilarious. So the reason Donna was telling me that she had to set something up that's temporary because
I have a recording studio in this suitcase.
That's awesome.
I don't know if I can fully show you because it's really tight in here. But this is a step up from my last closet studio. But so in here I made this with my dad because he's super handy.
Oh my God, it's a suitcase. That's
it's a
so
suitcase.
Awesome. Yeah.
I have these sides that I put in. I open it up. I have a little light in here. And if I am traveling, which I was last month, and I have a recurring job for the Oprah Winfrey Network, and twice a week I record promos for them, and they needed it. So I brought that suitcase and then this Sennheiser mic and my little I can't show it to you.
That's a 416, right?
Yes. And then my my little preamp that I plug my mic into and put it into my computer.
What preamp do you use?
It's a Scarlett, the Focusrite box.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
We got off the highway and we drove really, really far until we found a road where we couldn't hear trucks and parked on a gravel road. I opened up that suitcase, put the mic in it, and recorded promos that went to air.
Plural?
So a couple, yeah. We had to some go like, this program is brought to you by blah, blah, blah.
I love that story. That's so awesome.
Yeah. But I did, you know, the idea that and they sell online something similar to this. It's like a cardboard box, but you can make it. You can buy these little foam panels on Amazon.
Yeah, like Oralex or something.
Spray glue them to a piece of foam core, build yourself a little box so that the sound is not bouncing all around. Maybe you're going to hang up a quilt, your family's heirloom, and you're going to work on it. Because I see someone said, like, oh, you live in a small space. I can't give up my closet. but maybe it's a thing where you're just, I mean, a closet sounds good because it's packed with clothing and there's not a lot of room for sound to bounce around. So maybe you just have like, you know, that when you're going to go in once a day, you're going to take out 10 pieces of clothing and you're just going to go set up in there. And like I bought these lights online. They're like these little, you charge them with a USB and you can hang them up. You could hang them up from a little hook or a magnet. You know, I just
That's
got
cool.
really
Yeah.
creative. I just got
Yeah.
creative. And, you know, and so it feels so good to have this. I made this closet thingy but the mic is the key. Like having a good mic is everything. But, you know, to log into Nickelodeon to do this, I have this animation gig, and for the engineer to be like, "Oh my God, you sound amazing." Like that is a great feeling because I did it by
Yeah.
myself. I didn't, you know,
That's amazing.
I
Yeah.
did some research online, but I bought my stuff and then I experiment, you know, it's like,
Yep.
I can see, well, I had to build this door behind me that was just hanging from the top rack of the closet. This is just a normal, dumb, skinny closet. But I made a door and I hung it I just hot glued it to cardboard and, you know, I made it work. So I mean, I think you can do it without having a standalone booth. And maybe if you're so successful that you're the voice of NBC News and you've got to record every single day, then you're going to have to go buy a whisper room or something, or or go buy a new house or whatever. But I don't think, you know, it's not necessary.
If you're so successful. Well,
Yeah,
you have that kind
get
of
a closet.
career at this point. So, but you know, and if you were in a place that you owned, I'm sure that you would, you know, retrofit. Space.
But before we moved here, because we're renting, when we owned a house, I built a room in my basement.
Yeah. And that makes sense. And the basement's a good spot. But again, too, I don't want to spend too much time on the acoustic stuff because I do think that we can cover that later. But in a whole other thing dedicated to that. But I was going to say.
So did I answer? So Amy asked that if you live in a small space. Tell me, Amy, if you think I didn't answer your question. But yeah, I'm DIY all the way.
Yeah,
I absolutely.
It's fun. I think that's I definitely think that's something that people can do.
I miss you too.
And anyway, so I wanted to say I wanted you to tell people the Oprah story because I think it's a 2-for-1. It's interesting to hear.
Okay.
It's
wait, I'm just
going
to say. So Amy, you know what I'm going to do is because I realized like I'm gonna I'll make some notes or I'll make some notes and then I can send you links to like what I bought and the glue I bought or whatever. Cause it's hard to glue
Jess,
on
I'm sure has access to these to everybody.
Okay.
So
oh my God,
perhaps she could share that. That'd be great. But anyway, there's a few things that kind of flew by as we were talking that made me think of some of the questions or some of the stuff that we'd already talked about. I guess there's a Q&A option on here that allows people to.
because I'm looking at the chat and then I'm looking.
We've got
at
the chat, and then if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's a Q&A. You can always put questions in there as well.
Yeah. So yeah, I think because Courtney asked about the room. So yeah, I mean, this is it's like a closet that has those mirror doors that you slide and like so behind. Let's see. So you know, it's just like a sliding door. And then, like I said, I needed, let's see. So I needed a doorway. So I made this. And so I just hung a bunch of stuff and I created a box for myself. And
is your house pretty quiet? I mean, like, do you get like, you know, like leaf blowers outside and stuff?
Yeah, totally. Absolutely. 100%. I have to book out. I book out Monday, every other Monday, because that's when they have a lawn service come and cut the grass. Like,
that's
I
crazy.
can't, it's so loud.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, the guy next door is like a woodworker. And so there are definitely times, but I have to say, I got this animation gig, and it was the thing. I decided to go to LA to try to do animation because I really wanted to try.
Yeah.
And, so I booked a series. I have a small recurring role on this series, and sort of like in that same like voiceover class session that I talked about for JCPenney. You know, it's similar to this. I'm in a Zoom room with all the with the director and the casting director and the engineer and all the actors who are called for the session. And then I'm also connected through my IPDTL. So the engineer is getting my direct feed from my mic. But so and while I'm in this session, it's my first time that I had a session with other actors because I had recorded alone up until then. And I had like an hour free because they were starting with other episodes. And I was just Googling all the people that I was like finding their names and Googling them and texting to my kids like, oh my God, it's Mandy from Billy and Mandy. And like, like all the shows that they watched when they were kids, I'm working with all these actors. I couldn't believe it. But it made me feel so good because this one girl, she was young. She was playing a girl and she was a girl. And she said, she's like, oh my God, next door, they're building something. And she said, I'm going to go crazy. It's so loud and everyone could hear it. And the director was like, okay, well, why don't you go see if they'll take a break? And we'll just record all your stuff as soon as they stop. And in the meantime, we'll just go ahead and don't worry. Like, it was not a problem,
That's
and like,
amazing.
I would have been freaking out and like
bribing
the guys and but it was
bribing them.
But everyone's in the same boat, or everyone's in a different boat in the same storm, but we're all here. Everyone's got a problem. And I really feel like people are willing to figure it out. Like they were going to send me equipment if mine wasn't good enough.
Wow. That's impressive.
Everyone's working to make this work. So, but because somebody was asking about Source Connect and do you see a shift away from Source Connect Standard to things like Source Connect Now? No, I mean, I'm seeing that people are saying if you don't have Source Connect Pro or Standard that you can't, they're not going to work. They're not going to do it.
Yeah, and the reason is that, and again too, we can sort of transition away from the tech stuff. Because we got a ton more to cover. That's
I know. I'm sorry.
We can cover all the tech. No, don't be sorry. I mean, I think it's interesting, and it's also fun to hear you be so excited about this stuff. But I think that that ultimately the Opus codec that Source Connect Now and IPDTL are both based on. I don't know why Source Connect Now got thrown under the bus because it's basically the same. It's the same quality. It's kind of like Skype in that it expands and contracts the audio a little bit so that sometimes you might hear somebody go kind of quick to kind of catch back up. That's why it's problematic. It can be used and is used, but it's problematic. And that's why Source Connect is way more stable. And the reason why Source Connect costs what it does is because they don't own the codec. They have to rent. So anyway, that's a little bit of information along those lines, but let's move on.
Okay.
Because ultimately I think that I think people are going to love to hear the Oprah story because it kills two birds with one stone from the standpoint of it being something that one can learn from,
And I've told the Oprah story. I mean, it's the Oprah story at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, so the Oprah story is that I was working on demos for Jeep and from Chicago out of Detroit. So I wasn't working in person with the clients, but over the internet and doing sessions. And they had me in for a bunch. Like I kept getting called back in to change little words or new tones or new scripts. And I was really excited. And then one day they handed me a script over at CRC and it said celebrity voiceover across the top. And I was like, oh, that's not me. So who is it? And they were like, no, it's going to air during the Super Bowl. So it wasn't me. It was Oprah. Oprah was the voice for it.
Freaking Oprah.
And they were using me. I mean, not using, but I was the temp voice.
The placeholder for Oprah.
At first I didn't know it, right, which is like a great honor. So at first I didn't know I was the temp voice, and then I knew I was the temp voice because so, but I just, it's like their demos or whatever. And I mean, I don't think it's that common. Although I get, like I was telling you yesterday, I get auditions from my agent from LA and they're like, hey, this project to scale. If you want to pass, we understand. I'm like, who's passing?
Who's passing on
anything?
Stuff, right.
Like, well, that's insane. But so, obviously I'm doing my best. I'm doing my best work. I'm always doing my best. And so 6 months later, I get an audition to be the voice of the Oprah Winfrey Network because she heard me and listened to me over and over in her session and thought I was good. So,
such a great story.
And you just don't know. even like the other day, I had a friend who used to work at OWN and now she works at Disney Plus. And she texted me and she was like, hey, you're up for the demo, the whatever, the promo you auditioned for. And I didn't get it, but knowing that I was up for it,
we rarely get that information in this business.
you rarely know. So you have to just you got to know you're doing your best work. Oprah might be listening
That's crazy.
You never know if Oprah's listening to you.
We should get t-shirts with that.
But then anybody could be listening. You could do an audition for something and you're not right for it, but they could say, let's file her away. She might be good for something else. I mean, it's stuff that everybody knows, right? But it can be discouraging when you're auditioning dozens of scripts a week and you're not booking them, or maybe you're booking one thing, or when I came out here, the agents here in LA were like, come out for 3 months and check it out. You can't just come for a day or a weekend or like a week. You need to be here. And so we rented our house, we rented an Airbnb and we came out here for 3 months, and I went in to meet with them and I was like, I'm here. And they go, well, what can you do in 3 months? I mean, come on. And so I was like, wait, you told me to come here for 3 months. And they were just like, what you're trying to do is really hard. Like, it's really hard to break in animation. It's really hard to do commercial work in LA. You're not known, you're not in the clip, and I was really discouraged at first. But then I took animation workshops, very humbling experiences that I had. And I just kept practicing. I just kept working at it. And it's like, that's all I can say is like, always, if it's what you really want to be doing, and even if it's not, even if you're like, hey, I'm an on-camera actor, there's no work right now, it is really dead, I need to support my family, I need to make my insurance, then you should be auditioning for voice. Like, you should be trying to do everything. You should be as well-rounded as you can, especially as a Chicago actor. Being able to do work in every category, I think, is really important if being a journeyman is what your goal is.
And I think your attitude about this is impressive. And I think that it's not something that just happens to be the case. I think that it absolutely plays a role in why you've done so well and continue to do well, especially when you're like, I'm going to stick with this. I'm going to focus on animation. And really, it comes down to you just sort of embracing your truth and being honest with yourself instead of trying to, be like, come on, do you know who I am, or something like that, which I think people can get caught up in that a little bit because, they want to categorize themselves as I'm this guy or I'm that guy. And ultimately, you're who you are, and it's a struggle and it's something new, and you hadn't done that before, but you came at it with humility and you stuck with it and you kept focusing and you kept doing it, and you sort of evolved through what you need to evolve to be. And I think it might sound like I'm just reiterating what you just said, but I think the most important part of that is that you just you stayed focused, and there was nothing to get in the way where you're like, oh, I'm so experienced, I'm not going to stand for this.
Well,
it's about just sort of.
But that's not true, because there were definitely. I mean, I had a rough start here because I was. Well, it was the opposite. I was nervous. Like, I was going to auditions and my mouth was getting dry and I couldn't talk. And I was like, I've got to be successful in 3 months, like this timeline or whatever.
Yeah. You start foaming at the mouth.
Yeah. And then, it's also like learning a different skill. Animation is a different skill. It's a different kind of voiceover. And as is, like, I've done some live announcing. I have a game show that's on right now where I've got to talk like I'm shouting like I'm in a big room of people announcing the contestants and stuff. It's nuts. But, it's like finding all these different things, just like whatever. If you're a stage actor, it's going to be different if you're on stage at Raven Theater or if you're on stage at the Goodman. Like, knowing your instrument and how to adapt to different situations is important. And that's the thing about so many people think like, well, I have a great voice. Everyone tells me I have such a great voice. And that's part of it, but there's so much more to it. as anybody. I mean,
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
who's in the
Yeah.
workshop other than a bunch of people that work all the time. So what are you doing here?
I
Why
really
are you
do think of
listening
it
to
as
me?
top down, bottom up. I mean, the top down is surface stuff, is left brain analytical, which can be the death of the soul of a read, and bottom up is the coming at it sort of right brain experience of, you know, being in that experience and trying to engage in a creative way that taps into your natural human mechanism. And I think that, you know, it's one of those things that even if you're sort of Stella Adler and you can sort of turn it on and off because you've done it so many times, you know, in terms of different kind of warmth or feeling or whatever, it's still coming from that same place. And there's ways to get to those kinds of read or to add that kind of, soul back into it. I was going to say, since we're already at 40 minutes
Okay.
and
I
you
know
have limited time.
I ramble.
No, it's not rambling. It's genius. I should have just like, Don, I'll be back. I'm going to get a cigarette. No, I'm just kidding.
my God.
But no, you're doing all the work. But not to please. No, they're here to listen to you. But since we do have something prepared as an example, and I think this would be a good time to sort of transition into talking a little bit more about technique. But
a demo.
I think it. Well, yes,
We have a demo.
we're going to do a demo. We're going to do a live demo. Donna has agreed to not only sort of read to different music with copy that she's done professionally. This is a Walgreens commercial that aired with Donna's voice on it just before the pandemic that I caught and I have here. And so I'm
going to put the script. I've got the script.
Okay.
And I was going to put it in the chat for everybody.
Good. So she's going to share the script in the chat so you guys can follow along if you'd like.
Okay. Great. Okay.
And let me, actually, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to, there. Okay. So we have, so I've got a few different, background tracks with music on it, and I'm recording Donna via Source Connect, so the quality is going to be slightly better, probably somewhat unnecessary, but it's nice because we can. So I'm going to roll this. You'll read to music. Hopefully everybody else can hear it and the mix will be okay over Zoom. And we're going to try just a few different takes with the music, which I think is going to change the read, and then we're going to talk perhaps a little bit about a little more about technique in terms of how one gets to the read, how you get to your reads, even though you likely don't think about it that much anymore, because you've done this a lot.
Okay. And then we've got a couple more questions that just came in. So we're gonna hit those too in the Q&A. So I put the script the script is from me in the chat, and I wish that I had like the direction that they gave me, you know, all that stuff, but I don't have it. But because I just transcribed it. But this is an example of something where and I'm not sure if I had the music, but so I get this script, and it's about everyday life. It's about Walgreens making your life easier. And if I had seen the picture, which I can't remember, it's like a mom helping her daughter pick stuff up, and a dad running and looking at his iWatch, and like it's like normal people doing stuff, right? Okay.
Yeah, and we have that. In fact, you know what? I'm not gonna. I'll share the picture. Actually, you know, I guess I could share the picture at the same time, and you'll see it come through.
Yeah, but not the music. Right? Okay.
And
or
the music,
whatever. Okay.
Right,
but not the final music, because I think
we'll play your actual read that you did for the spot after we.
Okay, great. Got it.
Yeah, one or two of these. I put one in there that I thought was sort of humorous.
Ooh.
So I'm going to share my Avid Video Engine, which should now be displaying for everybody.
Yeah.
That, and you'll see it as Donna reads. You can read, because there might be slight delay, but you can read past the end of the spot if you want. But there's plenty of air in there. It's not like wall-to-wall copy. So anyway, I'll go ahead and I'm going to try to have the fader here so that I can make sure that you're not buried by the music.
Okay.
I'll have that at the
ready.
All right.
So when I hear the music, should I start?
Yeah. I'll just go ahead and count you in. 3.
Oh, wait, give me direction.
Oh, well, here, no, I think what I would like to do is, I would like you to just follow the music.
Okay. Okay.
Sort of instinctively sort of follow the music on this.
Right.
And remember that there's some space, so you don't have to, off to the races necessarily. Okay. There's a little bit of space. Okay. So 3, 2, 1.
At Walgreens, we understand the speed of life never slows down. That's why we're helping you get the care and attention you deserve even faster. That's our promise. Now you can skip the line with Walgreens Express. Get in and out quickly with 24-hour locations, or have your prescriptions delivered. Whenever you need us, we're always just minutes away. Walgreens.
That was really nice.
Thank you.
And actually, you know what? We don't have to play it back because they can hear you.
Yeah, we all heard it. All right.
Yeah,
So do you have different music now?
That would be too. I do. And
Okay,
actually, I was trying to find some stuff that would be humorous, like completely in the wrong direction.
Okay. All right. Whatever. Okay.
I think, you know what? It's a little bit different. This one is actually something that could be.
Okay.
Here, let me just go ahead and swap this in for you.
All right, Wizard of
Just thought this
Oz.
would be kind of a fun little exercise. Okay. So 3, 2, 1.
At Walgreens, we understand the speed of life never slows down. That's why we're helping you get the care and attention you deserve even faster. That's our promise. Now you can skip the line with Walgreens Express, get in and out quickly with 24-hour locations, or have your prescriptions delivered. Whenever you need us, we're always just minutes away. Walgreens.
That was cool. And just for fun, let's go ahead and just do one more. This might, let's see how long this one is here.
Yeah, I mean, reading to music is, and if you're in a session and, always ask for all the tools you can. Like, yeah, of course I want to see the picture. Of course I want to hear the music. And sometimes it's fun to do a read without the music. So you just do your instinct of what you think it might be like. But when you hear music, it really, for me anyway, it really changes the way, like if you react to what you're hearing, even especially when you see the picture and there's like really cute kids doing stuff, it definitely helps inspire and inform your read.
Okay, well, this one actually doesn't quite make it the whole way, so it'll kick in here. But
all right.
Wait, in fact, I'm going to bring it down because it's going to be.
All right, I'm scared.
No, I know, and then we'll move on.
Okay.
I just think this is just for fun here. It's just
okay.
There we go, because the Walgreens would never choose this.
Okay. Oh my God. What's it gonna be?
Yes. Well, you'll find out. All right, 3, 2.
At Walgreens, we understand the speed of life never slows down. That's why we're helping you get the care and attention you deserve, even faster. That's our promise. Now you can skip the line with Walgreens Express. Get in and out quickly with 24-hour locations, or have your prescriptions delivered. Whenever you need us, we're always just minutes away. Walgreens. Yeah, that's my military read.
Anyway, it's just silly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. But what I think, what interests me, and what I think would be interesting to others. Let's stop the share. Oh, here I'm back. It's just to talk a little bit about technique. About
will you play? You don't have to play the whole thing, but will you play the spot
sorry.
That they did, because it wasn't it was not what I expected.
Yes. Hold on a second. Let me get back to this so I can share the screen again. Here we are. Okay. Yeah. Let me play down the one that. Let me make sure that's craziness is muted. Here's the one that actually aired.
At Walgreens, we understand.
Sorry, I turned off the video. Let's bring that back.
It's okay. At Walgreens, we understand the speed of life never slows down. That's why we're helping you get the care and attention you deserve even.
Did you?
So yeah,
Oh, you are hearing it. You are hearing it. Yeah.
yeah,
Sorry.
yeah. I mean, that's
I'm
enough.
thrown off
But I
there.
mean, it's so interesting because I don't like when I see that. It's not necessarily the first read I would give if I was doing an audition for it. I wouldn't
Right.
necessarily think it was like stealthy and like a
Yeah.
little bit like a spy commercial, you know, but that's what, but I was directed there. So, you know, I probably started off going at Walgreens. I
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
started there and then have them just be like, no, bring it down. We want your lower register, you know, and then they brought me down to that.
And
rate.
it is one of those interesting things to explore. I think one of the most difficult things in this business is left to your own devices with auditioning. And how do you get to a read where you're not just marking space? Basically, I'm going to phrase it, and ultimately, you know, here I'm going to rely on my voice, and that's going to be enough. And it really doesn't sound like I have a point of view. So stuff like that, like, you know, making a very distinct choice so they hear, wow, this person did something, you know, instead of just giving the read that like 90% of the other people are going to be giving because they think it's about the voice and they think it's about, you know, stripping out all of the BS in their voice. But one of the things that I think is now sort of starting to creep back in, which sounds amazing to me when I hear it on the air, is that people have brought the humanity back to the read. And how do you get that? How do you tap into that humanity? You know, it basically, that's kind of what I've noticed. And I'm curious to know, like, what kind of advice you would give to those who are recording at home to get to a read that's going to get you hired as opposed to some other kind of, process.
Yeah, because I'm looking at Q&As and I think Taylor, it sort of covers this question about how do you prepare and tips to stand out, right?
Yes, right. Absolutely.
And yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, I did this commercial, but any of you could have done that commercial. Anybody we know could have, like, not my next door neighbor or someone who works for the TSA necessarily, but
yeah, right. Tell that story. Right?
but yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of being, you know, you either have the tone of voice that they're looking for, you sound like you're the right age, or that you've got the register that they want, you've given it enough rasp or whatever that they want, or it's just that you read it in a way that seemed right to them.
Right.
So the only thing you can do is be you. I mean,
right.
If you're trying to sound like other people, it comes off as being false. It's like, how would you read this? You know, and whatever it is, if you're not you're reading it and you're not a parent and it's all about being a parent, you know, a parent, or you have a parent, whatever it is, like you can, you know, use those sort of acting techniques.
Oh,
yeah. But yeah, to deliver it in a way that is surprising and different. And that's for sure, like, that seems to be the key to animation auditions that I'm finding out. But also, yeah, just really going for it. But also, you know, while Bill really, sometimes you get the storyboard. So sometimes you know what the commercial looks like, or they've given you a lot of description, but sometimes you don't get a lot. And so, you know, you're looking at the copy, you're trying to pare it down the way you would, you know, look for a theme in a short story or whatever. Like, what's this about? What's it about? Who's my audience? Who am I talking to? Who am I trying to sell to? Or who is this for? And
then what's really
the tone?
About?
Yeah. Like, what's the theme of it? The theme
what are they actually selling? Like, are they selling sex appeal? Are they selling power? Are they selling status? I mean, like, these kinds of things, like, yeah.
Right. And like this, you know, this is selling, we should have faith that they've got our back. Walgreens has your back. They're doing everything they can to make your life easier. And they're giving you all these different options. So now, depending on the picture, you know, you might read it to say, now you can skip the line with Walgreens Express, get in and out quickly with 24-hour locations. Or so there's 3 things they're offering, you know, so you can break it down the way that you would break down, like I said, a story or
Yes.
a report, a paper that you're writing. You've got your thesis statement, then you've got your little intro, you've got the bullet points of what's being offered, and then you have to sum it up. And then, and I think also if your agent isn't adverse to it, to say, like, maybe there's a really interesting tagline. So you read the spot and then do the tag 3 in a row. I mean, is it going to hurt anybody if you read a little bit extra?
Like sometimes I'll read,
sometimes I'll read the supers. There'll be a bunch of supers at the end that sound like the tagline, and I'll read them anyway.
Yeah.
They don't have to, it's not hurting anything. And it's also giving you, another opportunity to show them, like, I have variety. Sometimes I'll say, I'm going to give you 2 reads. I'll slate my name at the top and say, I'm going to give you 2 reads, and make them as different as possible. I'm never giving somebody 2 reads that are kind of the same, or trying not to anyway.
Yeah.
And I also think to present them with something that the client can hear it and go, oh, wow, that's the commercial. That's how I pictured it.
Yes.
And so you're in time. You're not turning in a 40-second read for a 25-second commercial. You're editing out maybe heavy breaths that are distracting. You are, you're on a mic that sounds good. You're in a place that you don't have to have a room, but at least there's not sound bouncing around off the walls. And it sounds as good as it can. There was somebody who once told me, like, a 30-second spot, I'm going to give them a 40-second read. I don't want them to use my work against,
Really?
And I just feel like if you give them something that they can drop into the track and it's perfect.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a good thing.
Right. And actually there was a client who, because the auditions that I do send out are of the highest quality. I mean, they could use that in their spot if they had to. And I think there was a particular agency, and I won't say which one, that I had done some work with, and he was like, oh yeah, we just need some placeholder voices, and they paid me for it for demos. And I heard someone say, are we going to pay him for it this time? And so I do think that they had been using my stuff for internal demos
to play for their boss or whatever.
Because it's good to go. And I'm like, if they're using that stuff, obviously they like you. They would have used someone else if they didn't like you. And why not just be that guy? I mean, how is it hurting you? And it's not like they're using it on the air or something. I mean, so I mean, I understand that it's
you
not
can imagine
ideal,
that.
But for those
you can
who are
imagine
worried,
that if you are turning in a good audition that is high quality, that other people are listening to it and they're maybe playing it for the client to see what they think.
Right.
I mean, I did a character on an HBO Max series that aired this summer, and I gave them. She was like a paper doll that comes to life, and she's like from the 1930s or whatever. And I did 2 different reads, and I booked it, and they used my audition from this room.
That's fantastic.
In the series. They were
That's
like,
amazing.
we don't
so
need
great.
to have you come in. We got it. You gave us.
I love it when that happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's rare.
I did a tag. I did a 3-in-a-row tag, and we had this whole session set up the next day. And they're like, yeah, we're good. And I listened, I'm like, it was perfect. I was like, God bless. That goes back to the engineer who ambience matched the whole thing. He made it sound and fit into an old spot. It was amazing. But anyway.
So I just saw another question about engineering my auditions and sweetening. So I'm not sweetening things. I'm taking out breaths. And really, that's it. I'm taking out breaths, and I'm just sending it as an MP3. I'm not doing a ton of stuff to it. But I thought I looked at debriefing, which I'm going to start saying. But I do I do warm up, I mean, that's one thing I do, is that before a session, I warm up, and I know my voice well enough that I know that I have to drink room temperature water. And if I have coffee before, it's going to sound, everything sounds bad. My saliva is crazy. I know that, if I'm a little mouth noisy today, that, I'll have an apple on.
I wasn't going to say anything.
And like,
but thanks.
I know, sorry.
Well,
but yeah,
we're at
getting
the
ready
top of
for
the
your
hour.
audition.
We're at the top of the hour here,
Okay.
and I do think that there's let me just review a couple of these things that had come in beforehand. Yeah,
So
we had said that we didn't flip projects because we've never had an opportunity to do something like that. Oh, actually, yes. Speak to that real quick about flipping
yeah,
projects union. And as it turns out, you have to flip the entire project. And if it's
yeah.
already started,
I think as a
then
voiceover, I think it's hard to flip a project unless it's like you hear about a radio commercial that's auditioning non-union people and you can somehow get to like, because I was seeing all these auditions on Backstage. I think it's called Backstage, whatever, some like a website in LA. Because I thought, oh, maybe I'll audition for a play or something. And then I kept seeing all these voiceover auditions, and it was this really cool movie that the student filmed. And I did the audition, and I said, I'm union. I know you want non-union, but maybe you'd want to hire me. And then he did, but then the union said no because it was not a union production. You can't just flip it at the
yeah,
end. Well, so
right.
often when they're putting voiceover on something, that's the
It's already
last
done.
step.
Right, exactly right.
So
No
yeah, I don't
pressure.
know about flipping stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Karen, do you feel like we answered your question about demos? Because
Let's bring Jess back in. Jess, since we're at the top of the hour, Donna has a hard out at probably in like, I don't know. She has something in
I
an
have a
hour.
session. I have a session in an hour. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
So
let's go through some of these questions, and both of you
sure.
guys
This can't
can
go on
answer these things.
forever.
And yes,
Okay,
we
yeah.
were talking about Karen's beforehand because that was a pre-submitted one.
Mhm.
Just the idea of, do you think that getting a new demo tape is any merit right now, or is it that direct from agent type of audition scenario that's profiting the best return if you have somebody that's submitting your actual audition for projects rather than demos? And
I would say for union,
kind of address that.
I would say for union talent, I think that if you have a web presence and you have a decent demo and you're being considered among 2 or 3 other people for a demo, or hey, you're on hold and they got 2 other people and they want just a little more information on other stuff you've done, they might go, and that it may make a difference under those circumstances. But mostly, I mean, if we ask our agents, hey, do you need a demo? They've got people that don't have demos that are working, because you get your stuff through auditions, and then they piece together demos from the work. The main thing, the biggest problem, and I think you'll echo this, Donna, the biggest problem I see is that people, and you said this earlier actually, is that people make demos and it doesn't represent what they can do. A demo is supposed to demonstrate what you can do. If we plugged you in, threw you in the booth right now.
Right. And of course, but it's tricky though, because I think that if you're, I would imagine if you're trying to get representation, that you want to give a sample of your work. But yet I know it's Stuart, I've heard it from Joan, and you said from Sheila, like, they don't want a fully produced demo that they don't like they want to have a hand in shaping your demo. Right. So I think it makes sense to maybe just, if you can get a microphone if you can invest in something that's what, like $100, $150, you can get something that sounds pretty good. Plug it into GarageBand and open up a magazine if magazines still exist, and write down the copy. Like, okay, a Smirnoff ad, and you're like, oh, the cool taste of Smirnoff. Like, you can get copy anywhere. You can just go on iSpot.
You could go to iSpot. Yeah, there's tons of stuff there.
Transcribe commercials and and do it. And it doesn't have to have music behind it and all that. The agent, if they're interested in you, they're going to be interested in what you sound like, not that you have a professional demo.
And Donna, I think you bring up a really great point too, because obviously, a lot of people that are attending right now know my frame of reference is mostly on camera. And for me, it would be the equivalent of, the actor that submits the headshot that's super like polished and they're showing us who they think they are.
Right,
you know what I mean?
Right.
And they come into the room, you're like, wow, that's really interesting. You're interesting too. And you're not who that guy on paper was that came in the mail. And I think that's the thing about like over engineering, is you're telling somebody on the receiving end who you think you are as a voice. And that's very tough. And I think your point is great. Just the idea of finding some dummy copy and creating your best version of a scratch track or something, because that's going to be more representative of who they're working with Monday through Friday, as far as send and receive, as far as the media goes. And so,
I was just thinking, I had somebody came to me with a demo that he wanted me to listen to, and somebody had produced it for him, and there were like 5 voices on him, and one of them was like an old-timey prospector. And he was like 24. And I was like, well, first of all, no one needs an old-timey prospector, but if they did, they would go find somebody
an
who's
old-timey
like,
prospector.
yeah, they find somebody who's over 25.
Because that guy needs to work, because they hardly ever use old-timey
Right.
prospectors.
That guy hasn't worked since the gold rush, so he needs
Exactly.
to
But I was like, but what you've ignored the thing that's great about you. You're a 24-year-old improviser.
Yeah,
like
right.
that's who we want to hire is you. You
Right.
are this young, smart, cool, sassy guy. You're not a prospector. And you want to show that you have variety and you want to maybe do a dialect, but and we had a question about accents on here, that if you
so
have,
for an actor that has a natural accent of their own speaking dialect is accented, what would you advise as far as demo or sample? How would you advise them represent themselves in their work or in their samples?
yeah, I mean, obviously that's going to restrict you. And it's just like I spent a lot of time not sounding like that. And so you have to, you have to
Sounded like your mom.
find it's my dad.
Or your dad,
you have to try to find a way to not have that accent if you want to work more, because most likely, unless they're looking for an accent or that they're open to all dialects or whatever, they might not be. So the more neutral you can sound, or just to have less of your accent, and maybe taking it all the way out is not good, because that's what makes you super cool. So experimenting with that, and obviously if you have an agent, to get their guidance on that.
And I think
there's another question that just came through.
Can I chime in with one question on that regard,
go
though?
ahead.
Do you think then it's important to have voice sample if you speak another language in that natural accent, in that language with that specific regional dialect?
As a part of a demo?
Or just as part of that, speaking the counter instead of working against what you have, like how do you build
Oh
out
yeah, I would absolutely. Because I've seen auditions recently coming through saying British accent, but only if it's your natural accent, or Eastern European, but only if, like, don't give us a fake accent. So, that is a great thing for you if you have another language, if you speak with a dialect or accent. Yeah, absolutely. Make the most of that, but also try to give it variety. Just like when I make my demo, I make sure that I include my natural speaking voice, my fake happy voice, my low sexy voice. Like, I'm giving as much variety as I can.
Voice.
Yeah.
So I was going to say that anything that's, well, first of all, for commercial, how often do you hear spots, even with a British accent? I never, very rarely, maybe once in a blue moon. So the point is like, in terms of real estate on a demo, if you were going to make a demo, if that's even important when you're to get started, it's kind of putting the cart before the horse. That's why I think getting like a Blue Yeti for $120, that'll give you a decent audition, and then working with agents, getting up to speed, doing classes, whatever. But if you're going to make a demo, why use up the real estate on that demo of something that is hardly ever in existence? And anything that is distracting is going to be a problem. And that's why this idea of adding music to your view audition is, yes, you don't do that, because it's going to be distracting. That they want to be able to hear you, and that's going to sort of distract from them being able to hear you. So that would be a bad thing.
Yeah. Somebody just asked about putting music on an audition, which you would never ever do.
We would never do that. Yeah.
Never, unless it's a singing audition and they've given you a track that you have to sing to, but otherwise no.
And even then, maybe not. Maybe they just want to hear you. It's kind of like doing that trick where you've got someone who's singing, they got the headphones on, and then you pull the music, and then their voice is just out there. Anyway, but I
have a very technical question from J. Horace Black. And the easiest way I could probably sum it up is what is your tech setup? He's asking, do you use preamp or what is in your mic chain?
She covered that.
Go ahead,
earlier.
tell us what your thing is.
She's got an Avalon with a 416, a Sennheiser 416 shotgun mic.
Yeah, I've got my mic, and then it goes into the Scarlett Focusrite.
Oh, Scarlett, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Scarlett that you talked about, and that goes into my computer. And I have.
Does the Scarlett have an A to D converter?
Pardon me?
What's your audio interface that actually translates it? It translates it into a digital, or does the Scarlett? Oh, the Scarlett has that. You're right. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Scarlett does.
And I record to I'm using Logic. Yeah, Logic Pro. Yeah.
And Bill, what about you? What are you using for those that haven't heard you give your rundown?
Oh yeah, yeah. I've got what the heck is this? It's a RME Fireface UFX Plus.
Of course it is.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Wow.
And I'm using a Hardy M2, which it's a 4-channel that sells for probably like $4,700 new with what I have in that thing. But I also am an audio engineer on the side. I've also got another mic preamp over here that I don't use much, that I should probably sell because I don't really need it. But that is a single channel thing. And those sell for like brand new for like $4,000. It's crazy. But most people don't need anything close to what I have in my studio. I use this stuff also for recording music. So it's kind of a double thing. But yeah, nothing I have is what I would recommend for people unless they just had cash to burn and they like really good gear. And then I would highly recommend it because it sounds amazing.
But then on the flip side, Marcia's asking, what are your mic suggestions for like $100 to $250 mic budget?
Yeah,
so if that's your financial
Yeah,
wheelhouse.
you're saying the blue
Yeti?
mics.
Yeah, the Blue Yeti's good. You know, one other that I really like is the Apogee mic. It's a little more expensive.
That's exactly.
I love that mic.
I think they're sold out everywhere. Like,
it sounds great. Yeah.
But yeah, I like that Apogee too. I think that's really good. If you go to Sweetwater, it's interesting because they're everything's sold out on their website. They're having the best year they've ever had because everybody
needs their gear.
Everybody needs gear.
They all need the stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and I do think that that's viable for people in their home studios, but I think that there are other ways to go. Like that Scarlett, I would choose as a reasonably good pre that also has an 880 converter in it. So basically, it's an audio interface that you can plug your mic directly into, and then if you wanted a microphone that's not a USB microphone, I kind of like the Audio-Technica 4033. But that one you got to be careful about because the proximity effect on that is dramatic. So I think you really have to try to find that right thing. This microphone that we're both using, the 416, is a great microphone because it's hypercardioid. So it quote unquote shrinks the room in the sense that you got to be right online with it. So if I go over here, I'm starting to have off, you can totally hear that. So the point is though, that it is a shotgun microphone, and Donna will say that, when you go into the studios, especially CRC and stuff, a lot of the studios use this actual microphone. If you want to blow a lot of cash on a microphone, go out and get yourself a U87, but it doesn't necessarily work for everybody. Or the TLM 103.
Because then I just got, I got this for animation, and this is the Neumann, the TLM 103. Is that right?
103.
And how much? $1,000, right?
Probably in that range, but you could get a used one, maybe. For maybe $700-800 maybe. So that's a great deal, that microphone.
And I did that. I just did that in the past couple months because I wanted to be able to offer. I started getting auditions where they asked what microphones we had at home. Not only that we have Source Connect and IBDTL, but what mics do you have? And so I thought, well, I'll have 2 mics to offer, and that's the preferred mic that for animation reads.
For animation,
And that's the other thing too. It's like it's just such a tough time because it's a lot of money to be putting into a career. Although any other business is like, there's some investment that has to be made. But I think if you're not doing it full time yet, or you don't have a weekly gig, getting one of those, the Apogee or one of the Blue mics, and having something that you can do good sounding auditions on, and then if you start booking stuff, then you'll have the money to buy the because I guess maybe what we didn't make clear is like this mic or the other one I showed you, these mics they're not USB mics. They don't
Right.
plug right into your computer the way
Exactly.
that the Apogee does, or the Blue mics will plug a USB right in, and you'll be in GarageBand ready to go.
And with those, you can obviously figure out what it is you need to build upon, depending on what kind of work you're booking and what it is you
Right.
really need. And then hopefully you're recouping that investment
Right.
on the front end before, anting up.
Cart
Yeah.
before the horse with that other stuff. I would say, as Donna reiterated, that's the way to go. Sort of start with something that will get you in the game. And especially these days, if you have to go to a studio, you can. And if, like I was saying, Gene used a Yeti in a session and they were okay with it. So, I would say for voiceover, you can get away with a lot more these days than perhaps previously. I don't know.
Here's a generalish question that I don't think we've touched on that Taylor was asking. She's asking about sharing differences in type of commercial voiceovers and how you prepare, or tips you can use to stand out. In addition to, if either of you offer training, which please feel free to plug that as well if that's something you do outside of your own booked work. But first and foremost, how do you prepare and how do you stand out in these different types of reads?
Well, Donna, you spoke to that a little bit, but I mean, like I've started a group of union members in good standing, 4 union members in good standing, where we explore stuff and sort of figure out how to reverse engineer what we hear in certain spots and find a way to sort of harness who we are as human beings to bring that warmth to the copy, because that's how I think you stand out. And that's what I'm hearing in spots when I hear stuff on TV. I'm like, wow, listen to that read. Wow. Donna, I think you have it naturally. I don't think you have to work too hard for that. I think you have a natural, like just incredible talent for that, to be able to connect to the copy in a way that other people have to perhaps, I don't know, work a little harder at. So anyway, that's how I think you stand out. And if you listen to certain spots on the TV where you hear and one of the other things I think you said, Donna, that I think is incredibly important that I learned about, I'm learning more about from a mindfulness perspective of just sort of owning your reality and being yourself and sort of being honest in who you are in the moment. I think you do that as well. When you talk about, being yourself in the read, I think these are things that perhaps are less apparent from the outside when we just kind of look at who you are. And I think that's a talent. But I think that with all of that in mind, there's kind of almost an improv. And I find it interesting, Donna, that you haven't done any improv training until recently, until you got out to LA. But I think that whole skill set, that process of sort of coming up with the counter narrative, because I find that even if I read directly in a commercial like we were doing right there, that the commercial's never as interesting as the stuff that I amuse myself with on the fly. That's sort of my sub narrative that bring out different qualities in my read that the client will hear and they'll go, wow, he's doing something. There's something interesting happening there, which shows them that I can. And then when they hire you and you've got something going on that draws out the humanity, and there's ways to do that, then it becomes tangible. It's like, I think of it as like the uncanny valley in animation, where animation's so good that if we look at the outside and we try to mimic what we see that's surface level, we can be really good at mimicking, but there's that sliver, the uncanny valley of like, ooh, there's soul missing here. That's like they're propping it up. They're pretending like there's a soul because they're sounding like something else, but they're not bringing themselves to the read. That's what I think is going to win you jobs today, because the read has changed a lot. But anyway,
I think that, I was going to say, part of it is knowing, I mean, there are definitely trends in voiceover, there were times where you had to be super slick and polished, and there are times where you just don't even sound like you're reading copy. I remember being in sessions where they're like, don't, no, you sound like you care too much. Like, it's like we want them to think we hate these products. But there's this like anti-read where you're just not, but it's more about vocal quality. Or then there'll be trends for, it's like, oh, you're the Modern Family couple, or you're the blah, blah, blah couple. Like they want you to be like a TV show. Or so being aware of what's
styles.
Popular, and then also I was going to say, and I touched on this before, and I think it's really important, like, what's your audience? Because if you're auditioning for an industrial, is it an industrial that's instructing people on how to use something that they've never seen before, or
Right.
is it a message to a company that they already know, that you're just praising them, like, we hit our sales this
The
year
humble
because of
brag.
you, and so you're not informing them. You are praising them, or or scolding them. We didn't meet our goal. No, but
Yeah, yeah.
that what is the audience? Who's the intended audience? And then what are you selling? Like, are you selling shirts that are $2.99? Or, I did a Coca-Cola thing once, and I can't remember how this came out, but the writer was like, well, it's not like we're selling Coca-Cola. We're not selling a drink. We're
Yeah.
selling a brand. So
Yes,
is
yes,
it
yes.
an anthem spot? Is it about the
Right.
history? Like those
Corporate
Jeep things that
image.
I did,
Yeah.
that Oprah did, they weren't about like four-wheel suspension or what. Like, there was no
Yeah.
mention of the car. It was all about the history of Jeep.
Yes.
So and this Walgreens thing we did is super specific. They're
Yeah.
telling you about their new offerings, these 3 new ways that you can get your prescriptions fast. So
Yes.
make sure you're communicating that. So, we talked about this yesterday when we were talking about this, what we were going to say. Like, there's this idea that you have to be talking to a friend and you're intimate, but you never say to your friend, these paper towels are so absorbent. I'm so happy that I got
Yeah.
Bounty. Like,
Yeah.
no one ever does that. So
Right.
how do you sound like you're talking to a friend about
Yeah.
something you'd never say with,
Yes.
words you'd
Yes.
never
Yes.
say to your friend?
Right.
So those kind of like,
Right.
and again, I think that if you go on iSpot and you just, look, who are you? What's your age? What's your gender? What do you think, what would you be doing ads for most likely? Or what auditions are you getting? Find those commercials and just listen to them. And you don't have to copy them, but just get a sense of like what a pro is doing and how they're accomplishing it. And then see how you can apply it for yourself. I think those are valuable tools.
Absolutely. I do think that the style, and that's what we're talking about here, the variations in style, because there's so much variation that it's kind of like saying, Donna, do a British accent. If you've never heard a British accent before, there's no way to do it. So in order to be aware of those things, you have to actually, pay attention. You have to allow it to sort of program into you. So you have that sensibility when they ask for it. If you don't have that, that's an aspect that you can't make up for by relating to the copy, because you're just unaware of it. And it's one of those things that's why there's so many layers here, that sort of, it starts from the top down. Like with retail, we were talking about, structuring the phrasing of the copy. And, if you want it to be balanced, you can't go down on every phrase. You can't go up. You have to find a way where it works. And that's one thing you do, that you sort of an overlay. But anyway, that's important, I think. Yeah.
I see we have one last question.
Okay.
From Marty asking, and I'll give this to each of you. What is your warm-up routine? What do you do to get ready? Somebody also asked earlier a question about what foods are you avoiding and whatever. So what have you guys found are either your routines or your checklist of, whether it's a session or what, I'm not doing this, I am doing this, what are your things?
Yeah, I'm trying not to eat before a session, because I don't know how the food is going to affect my mouth and what it's going to sound like. I don't drink coffee. I have water, or if I need like warm water with lemon to cleanse clean up the sound. And then I like to warm up my voice in the morning. I like to talk either on the phone or just talk to myself, and then do like tongue twister kind of things, to just be ready for
Where do you find those?
fast copy. Well, I
Or
mean,
do
you
you
could
memorize them by now?
I just have a thing I memorize, but yeah, I mean, open a Dr. Seuss book, or you could just read Dr. Seuss as fast as you can. Yeah. And
wow, that'll break you. Yeah. You start to cry.
Yeah.
No,
How about you?
that's amazing. It is interesting. I often find, of course, in this day and age, you really have to get your auditions back immediately. I mean, if they're listening to hundreds of auditions and they find viable candidates in the first 40, you're gone if you're not in there. So get it in. And that's one of the things that drives me nuts, is because these days it takes me a little longer to wake up. It takes a little longer to wake up my voice. And one of the ways I do it is I've got a book over and right here, I throw it on the stand. And what I do is I put headphones on to inure myself to my voice. And literally I try to read in the most mindful way possible, where I'm not trying to affect anything. That's one of the things, I don't know if Deb Stocher is still on, but we were talking about how newer voiceovers focus so much on the sound of the voice and they try to affect a sound. And ultimately it can be distracting, and they like that, like, no, I'm speaking, you know, and it's kind of crazy, but just the opposite. And the opposite is just being 100% myself, and just sort of literally letting myself sort of just kind of get into being myself, tap into myself. You said that earlier, and I think it's huge. I won a gig once where they wanted, and it was a great gig, and it turned out to be one of my coolest sounding spots. But I won a gig because they said they wanted what's his name? I can't think of it all of a sudden. I can see him in my head. A celebrity. I can't think of his name. It's crazy. It'll come to me. But anyway, and I'm nothing like this celebrity. And so basically, I decided, okay, well, he speaks slowly, like he doesn't eat through anything. He's completely himself. He doesn't have to be anybody but himself, because that's who they hired. And so I'm like, all right, I'm just going to be completely myself. And
Deb's asking if it's Morgan Freeman right now.
Thank you. I told Deb, and I'm like, for some reason, it was like one of those weird moments where you're completely blocked. It was freaking Morgan Freeman.
Morgan Freeman.
I'm not Morgan Freeman.
What a voice reference point. Just be Morgan Freeman.
Just be Morgan Freeman.
Throw a little Morgan Freeman on it.
Just be yourself. Yeah.
So if you're Morgan Freeman, yeah.
So anyway, I mean, oftentimes we get it, you know, one of the things that's going to send you into a feedback loop of anxiety, which is ultimately what mindfulness counteracts, because it takes you out of that. And that's why I think it's the key to performance anxiety. If you have it, if you can sort of embrace the idea of, okay, you know, wow, noticing things about yourself. Oh, I'm feeling nervous. My heart rate's going faster. I'm getting a dry mouth, or I'm distracted, or I really want these people to like me, or at least you're allowing it to be what it is, and not being like, oh my God, I'm anxious. And that's making you more anxious, and you have a freaking attack, and then you suck because you're so nervous. So that's so powerful. And you said it earlier, and I think it's so powerful to sort of be like, hey, I'm okay. I'm going to bring myself to this, because, you know, that's my strength. And it sounds like, you know, the kind of stuff you hear that you're like, oh, come on.
Right.
It's 100%. And Donna, you embody that.
Well,
and it works. Yeah.
Thanks. I was going to say, I think an example of that is, you know, when you get a script, you get an audition, and they give you references, and it's like, we want you to sound like Brie Larson or Mindy Kaling or
Don't look at it.
Amy Schumer, and you're like, okay, well, none of those women have a similar, like, it's not about their voice. So they're asking, they don't want you to sound like them. They want you to be them. And so what does that mean, you know?
Right.
And so what is it,
Translate.
who's your Amy, what's the Amy Schumer part of you? What's the Mindy Kaling part of you? And exploring that, because nobody wants a voice imitation. But finding that part of you, because you've got there's something that you can identify there. And so, finding that, I mean, we've said it over and over again. It's like, it's so bizarre, because it's like you're trying for something, and it's not about just doing it perfectly or how you sound. It's just about you bringing something that's surprising and unique. I you know, with that animation gig, the casting director said to me, every time I listened to your audition, every time it made me laugh, because I did something weird and surprising that I added to it.
Right.
And that got me in the door.
That's
and it
so,
wasn't,
but so much of that is being present too, like being not being like heady about it, not being like outside of yourself and like externally conscious. Like, as you guys are talking about this, it makes me think of like, you're either giving the understudy performance where you're doing a poor man's version of Brian Dennehy or whatever.
I love it.
You know what I mean? Like, or you are doing this knowing what the director wanted, but doing your version, you know, it's the improv idea of playing the scene you're in, right? Like, you know, it's not replaying a scene somebody else played, it's playing the scene you're in. So yes, absolutely. Like, when people throw out all of these like pop cultural reference points, it's not that they want you to synthesize all those like styles, it's to give that energy, which is relative to your performance. And they don't know what that is until you give it to them. So how do you get out of your head and get out of your way, incorporate their feedback, and then throw it out the window, knowing that you've like synthesized that idea.
Right.
Yes.
You've
yes.
done, I mean,
That's huge. Yeah.
I've gone into audition one time where the script said a Donna Jay Fulks type voice.
No.
And I did not get it. So, I mean,
that's got to be some sort of bingo when you get yourself as a reference point, right? Like,
that's freaking awesome. I love it.
But I didn't book it.
Happen?
So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like they think they know what they want, but they don't. And so what they want is for you to tell them, like, this is it. This is the right read for you. It's unique. It's me. Nobody else gave you anything like it. So,
I think as a closer, in the same spirit of like empowerment, I want you guys to give each of you, both of you, take a turn giving the audience your Jerry's final thoughts. Like, if you had a closing line on this installment, what's the Jerry's final thoughts on like, do for yourself like this? Here's my truth that I share with you. Take and impart this wisdom into your life. That's a little heady. How about that?
No, yeah. I mean, I feel like I've said it a bunch. I was thinking, I just think that it's the kind of thing that if you want to be good at it, you have to work on it, and you have to practice, and you have to give yourself the tools to practice. So that means making a small investment in a microphone, then that's what you have to do. But you just have to practice. And if you do, you'll get better at it, because that's just like, nobody picks up a guitar and just starts playing it. So just practice and research and give yourself all the information you can about it, and just get better at it.
Yeah, and I would say that science, I've been reading some stuff on neuropsychology, and ultimately the science reflects that, like a violinist whose left hand, changes on the strings, that part of their brain that controls their fingering on the violin, is the neural density is greater because of the repetitions. That actually the myelin sheath increases. And so I think that repetition absolutely makes a huge difference in that regard. And I do think that, from what you were talking about, if we were all in LA and they have ultimately like dozens of each type, they're never, ever going to hire you to be an old timey, whatever,
Yeah.
Right. So the point is like, if you can get in there and bring the humanity and also have fun with it. People think, this is, who gives a shit about the products? This is advertising. Why should we care about this stuff? We don't care about that. And that's not what we're selling. If that's how you're doing the voiceovers, you're going to fail every time. And so ultimately, if you've got something like in here, when I'm auditioning for stuff, I'm cracking myself up. I'm having a good time. I'm imagining stuff. I'm trying to bring stuff out that makes it very personal and very interesting. And I think that gives me a chance to win the gig. There's a lot of components to this, as we've discussed. There's a lot of different layers that throw other kinds of actors off. I mean, if you have to speed up the beginning, hit this word, slow down over here, and make it sound like you're a human after they've just handed you the script, that's not easy to do.
It's not easy,
and that's why it's not so easy. But I think that if there are ways to do this and to take it as a challenge and to be inspired by it. And anyway, I do offer that to people who are union members in good standing, and I make it accessible price wise. I'm doing a group tomorrow night again, and if you're interested, I'm happy to consider you. But ultimately, that's my whole thing about being angry with people who try to take advantage of voiceovers and charge them out the nose. And ultimately, we can make demos, but who cares about the demo if you can't do it? So let's get into a practice situation and be good.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was the one thing I wanted to say, because I've had a few people send me links to like voiceover classes and stuff. And I've gone ahead and Googled the teacher and listened to the teacher's demo, and they're awful.
Why would you hire that
guy? You would never hire someone to be your piano teacher who doesn't know how to play the piano. So don't get a voiceover coach who's terrible at what they're doing. And if you, you know, maybe it's a matter of just recording stuff and sending it to a friend or a mentor or somebody else who wants to get into it and say, listen to these, what do you think? You know, getting some feedback from people. But yeah, but don't, if you're going to take a class, make sure it's with somebody who's reputable. And if you don't know if they are, you can tell by listening to their demo.
Yeah, that's true. That makes me think that I need to update my demo now. Anyway, Donna, thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know you've got a session coming up here.
Fun.
This is incredible. There's so much more. We could talk all day, but I'll kick it back to Jess. And guys, I'm going to reiterate, you know, think of how much you blow on a coffee at a Starbucks. It's like, what, $5 now, even more than that in some cases. At the very least, don't leave here without dropping $5 to Kaufherr. And if you can afford more, do so, because that's how this stuff is possible.
Well, and the other thing that you can do, thank you for that, Bill. The other thing that you can do, since you are here, is to make sure that your union brothers and sisters know that these resources exist, not just for you, but for them as well. Because the next thing you can do is offer word of mouth. And the thing that I hate, and I've said this before, is I hate the idea of people like dying on their own swords out here during this pandemic, trying to do for themselves in like an incubator in an isolation bubble. You know, it's not incumbent upon you to like solve all of your own problems. There is a universe outside of you and a community, and we're part of that community. So as we've said before, please do connect with us, kaufhercenterchicago.com or at Kaufherr Center on social media. If you have emails that you want to send to us, if you have specific questions that you want to follow up on outside of this conversation, whether they're questions that we can help you with or we can follow up with our panelists, feel free to reach out to us. My email is jess.jones@Kaufherr Center Chicago, and our media technician is at staff, STAFF, at Kaufherr Center Chicago. That's Henrique. We exist to support you guys. So please don't hesitate to connect with us. There are no stupid questions. There's only preventable mistakes. Bill, Donna, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for giving of yourselves and your time. I appreciate you guys. You guys, thank you all audience members for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for coming, everybody.
Yeah, thanks for coming, guys. Have a great rest of your day.
Hanging with us. All right, that was awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, have a good one. Everyone be well.
We'll see you. All right, take care.